So, looking at chapter 14, The Age of Democratic Revolution, part 2, Enlightenment and Revolution. Volunteers like Lafayette and Kosciuszko from Poland traveled to America to assist the colonists. They also helped persuade the King of France to ally with the colonists in their dispute with Britain. The French thirsted for revenge for their defeat in 1763 and the loss of Canada. In Ireland, groups demanded more rights from the English government. They were actually copying what the colonists had done in the Americas. So shortly after winning their independence in 1783, the Americans sent representatives to the Constitutional Convention. The basic challenge faced by the authors of the Constitution was to create a strong national government, but not so strong that it would threaten individual liberties. The new U.S. Constitution created a system in which power was shared between the national government and the state governments. The Constitution further divided the three different types of government powers: legislative, executive, and judicial, among these three separate branches of government, as advocated by the Enlightenment thinker Baron von Montesquieu. So the new Constitution gave each of these government branches several ways to check the other branches, known as a system of checks and balances, in order to ensure that no one branch became too powerful or tyrannical. The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution to include protections of individual liberties. Finally, the ultimate power rested in the people, who elected officials, creating a system of popular sovereignty where the people were supreme. French Revolution. The American Revolution ended in 1783 when Britain signed the Treaty of Paris with the new United States. Only 6 years later, the desire for change across the Atlantic Ocean erupted in France. Paris became the center of this revolutionary explosion, sending shockwaves throughout Europe. Historians still debate whether the French Revolution could have been avoided or whether it was inevitable. Most historians agree that changes in the French society were needed, but they disagree on whether or not the changes could have taken place through peaceful reforms or whether a violent revolution was necessary. So look at the three different estates. First estate was the clergy, the Roman Catholic Church. Second estate were the nobles. The third estate, which was 98% of the population, was the bourgeoisie, which were your wealthy commoners, your city workers, and 80% of the third estate were peasants. So the old regime French society was divided into three classes, or estates. The first estate was the clergy, consisting of priests and church officials. Second estate was the nobility. The nobles held many special privileges, such as being exempt from many taxes and having the right to collect feudal dues. Nobles also served as officers in the army and held high positions in the court. The third estate, the largest of these three estates, was made up of the common people. This estate included the bourgeoisie, the middle class of merchants, professionals, and shopkeepers. It also included urban workers, and then the largest group in France, the peasantry. So Enlightenment ideas made Frenchmen unwilling to accept the divine right of kings and the privileged positions of the church and nobility. Many bourgeoisie, influenced by their rising wealth and Enlightenment ideas, resented special privileges of the nobles. Many liberal nobles and clergy actually shared their beliefs. Although there was censorship, a flourishing underground press poked fun at the king and the unpopular queen, Marie Antoinette. Financial crisis in France. The financial system of France was based on tradition. Different social classes and even different geographical regions paid different tax rates. For example, some provinces had joined France later in history and had been given special rights. Towns and provinces taxed each other's goods, hurting trade. Over time, the king had sold off the rights to collect many taxes to tax farmers and office holders. By the late 1700s, many saw the whole system as outdated and unfair. Although France was actually a wealthy country, the government did not have the efficient means for taxing this wealth. To finance their wars with Britain, French ministers had relied heavily on borrowing. Because of the high cost of helping the American colonists during the War for Independence, the Crown now faced a severe financial crisis. By 1786, France's finances were in a desperate situation. The finance minister informed the king that he could no longer obtain any more loans. To deal with this problem, the king's ministers summoned the nobility to Paris in 1787 for a special assembly of notables. The government suggested that the nobles surrendered their privileges, and helped the crown pay off its debts. The nobles said that before they could take any such step, the government must hold an Estates General, a national assembly in which each of the three social classes was represented in its own chamber. No Estates General had met since 1614. The nobles felt that they would be able to control the Estates General since the first and second estates would vote similarly. King Louis XVI gave in to their demands. Elections were held all over France to select delegates from the different estates. People became very excited as they debated issues and drew up instructions